In the stillness between moments, a quiet journey through healing, solitude, and the subtle beauty of days that pass without needing to be anything more. Most mornings, I wake before the sun rises. It happens naturally now, without an alarm. There is a certain stillness in the early hours that feels honest, before noise and movement ask anything of me. I get out of bed, make tea, and sit by the window. The steam from the mug fogs the glass, and for a while I watch the street come to life slowly. Across the road, the bakery opens early. The same woman raises the metal shutter, ties her apron, and begins her day. Sometimes she waves to people passing by. Sometimes she doesn't. There's a man who walks his dog around the same time each morning, always stopping to look through the bakery window before continuing. These small things repeat themselves without variation, and I've come to rely on them more than I expected. My apartment is quiet, the kind of quiet that isn't lonely but doesn't feel full either. There's a certain comfort in its simplicity. One toothbrush in the holder, one towel on the rack, a table with only one chair pulled out. It took a long time to get used to that arrangement. Now it feels like the way things are meant to be. I've gone 3 days without speaking aloud. It's not something I do on purpose, it just happens. I go to work, complete tasks, send emails, nod in meetings, and then come home. There's no one to greet, no one to answer to. Some days I receive texts, most go unread for hours. I respond when necessary. The replies are short, functional. I've learned that not everything needs to be said. I used to live a different way. There was another apartment, another routine, a life with another person folded into mine. At the time, I thought that life was ordinary in a good way. Dinner together, grocery lists with both our preferences, shared passwords and laundry baskets filled with both our clothes. Now that I look back, I don't remember when the small things stopped feeling natural and started feeling like obligations. The days between us grew quiet. There was no single argument. Just moments passed without noticing until the silence between us filled the room. We both worked late. We both forgot to ask how the other was. We both knew things were changing, but said nothing, as if the silence could hold it all together. Eventually, we packed boxes. He took his half, I took mine. I don't remember which of us closed the door last. But I remember the absence that followed. It didn't arrive with grief, but with a strange calm, as if my body had been bracing for the quiet all along. Since then, I've lived in this space. It's small, but manageable. Everything has a place. I keep it clean. The fridge is always organized. I fold my laundry as soon as it's dry. Routines have become my way of making the days feel like they're in motion, even if little changes from one to the next. After work, I take long walks. There's a park not far from here, and a path that runs along the river. It's quieter than the city streets, and I like the way the water moves, even when everything else feels still. I don't bring headphones. I don't need distractions. I've started to notice the rhythm of my steps, the birds that linger on certain benches, and the elderly couple that feeds stray cats near the bridge. Sometimes I write in a notebook, not stories, just single sentences, observations, thoughts that feel too small to say but too persistent to forget. Most pages remain half-filled. I don't reread them. I just keep adding lines, as if by writing them down, I'm making space for something else. At work, I stay focused. I respond to emails on time. I finish tasks early. I rarely join office lunches. People seem to accept that. Some probably wonder why I keep to myself, but no one asks. There's an advantage in not being the loudest person in the room. It allows me to pass through the day unnoticed, and that feels like a kind of peace. The weekends are slower. I do errands early to avoid crowds. I wash the sheets, vacuum the floors, and make something simple for lunch. I don't do anything remarkable. But there's a quiet satisfaction in ticking off small tasks. At night, I sit by the window with a cup of tea, letting the lights of the city blink and stretch into the darkness. I don't always think about it much. Sometimes I think about everything. I found an old photo recently. One is from a trip we took years ago, standing in front of a lake. We looked younger, tired but happy at that moment. I didn't feel sad looking at it, just aware of how far away that version of me feels now. It wasn't a bad memory. It was just a version of a life I no longer live. I don't keep many photos out anymore. They're in a drawer, safe but out of sight. What I've learned is that I don't need reminders of what I've already felt. The memories don't disappear. They just settle. Some are softer than others. A few weeks ago, I started volunteering on Sundays at a small community center. I help sort books and sometimes stock food pantry shelves. It's not much, but it makes the days feel less about me. There's a comfort in being part of something without needing to explain yourself. The building is old. The floors creak in certain spots, and the walls are lined with faded posters and mismatched furniture. It smells faintly of old paper and cleaning solution. I've come to like the atmosphere, humble, unfinished, and steady. Most people keep their conversations light, some talk easily. I prefer to keep my hands busy and my thoughts contained. There's a man there I often see. He helps with the deliveries. We've never spoken. We simply nod at each other, move boxes, carry crates, and stack items on shelves. He works quietly. I respect that. Sometimes he finishes before I do. I see him leaving through the side door. He always turns back for a moment, as if to make sure everything is still in place before he walks away. I don't wonder much about his story. I don't project my own questions onto him. But something in his rhythm feels familiar, like someone who also understands how silence can become a form of language. We move in the same space, parallel but not intrusive. There's something oddly reassuring in that. The other day, a young girl at the center handed me a drawing. It was a tree with red leaves and a small figure standing beneath it. I don't know if it was meant to be for me, but I kept it. It's now pinned to the refrigerator, the only decoration there. It reminds me that even in silence, we're seen sometimes. Since the seasons began to shift, the light has changed. The evenings arrive sooner now, the sky pulling its darkness like a curtain just after the afternoon slips away. I've taken to lighting a candle in the apartment once it gets dark, not for any occasion, just to feel the space warm in a different way. I sit with it lit until I go to bed. Watching the flame move has become part of my routine. I used to believe healing had to look like starting over, that I'd have to fill my life again with people, events, distractions, and noise. But now I've come to understand that healing often chooses quieter shapes. It moves slowly. Sometimes it doesn't even look like movement at all. It's the absence of an ache where there used to be one, the softness in the middle of what once felt sharp. Some mornings I still wake up with that familiar weight in my chest, the one that used to signal grief but now only reminds me that something used to be here. It doesn't linger like it used to. I get up, I stretch, I make tea, I sit by the window. The world outside unfolds slowly, predictably. And that's enough. I passed the river again yesterday, walking along the same path I always do. The water was high from recent rains, and there were fewer birds than usual. The elderly couple wasn't there. Even the cats were missing from their usual spots. Still, I walked. The path curved the same way. The air was damp but kind. I realized that even when nothing extraordinary happens, time still passes, and somehow, so do we. There are still things I miss. Not the relationship itself, but the version of myself that once belonged to something. That sense of proximity, of being known. But I don't reach for it anymore. I don't chase memories for comfort. I let them sit where they are quiet, unthreatening, and tucked away like winter clothes in summer months. Sometimes at the community center, I catch myself lingering after the work is done. I find small things to tidy, excuses to stay just a few minutes longer. I don't need to. No one's keeping score. But maybe I like the atmosphere of gentle motion, of shared space with people who expect nothing more than your presence. The man who handles the deliveries still doesn't speak. But I've started to notice the way his expression changes slightly when the job is done. A flicker of relief, or maybe it's contentment. It's strange how much you can see in someone when you're not trying to. It reminds me that we are all, in our own ways, carrying something. And sometimes we put it down in the same room as someone else without ever saying why. One Sunday, I stayed until the sun began to set. The sky turned gold, then rose, then a deeper blue. I walked home slowly, watching the city breathe in the change. There were lights coming on in windows, families gathered around dinner tables, and couples walking closely under scarves and coats. I didn't feel apart from them. I just felt separate. Like a page turned in the same book, but in a different chapter. At home, the apartment was as it always is. Neat, still, familiar. I turned on the small lamp near the window, light the candle, sat down. I didn't think about what I'd lost. I thought about what remained. The notebook is still here. I've added more lines, more unfinished thoughts. I still haven't reread them, but the pages are filling up slowly. And that too feels like something. Not a story, but a presence. Somewhere in the silence of this life, I've started to feel myself return. Not dramatically, not with declarations or reinvention, but with gentle acknowledgments. With a kind of patience I didn't know I could hold. With small rituals that mean nothing to others but everything to me. There is no great epiphany, no bright cinematic turn. Just the understanding that sometimes healing isn't about finding something new. It's about staying, remaining in your own skin long enough to recognize it again, sitting in the quiet and realizing that it no longer frightens you, that it might, in fact, be home. And on nights like this, when the candle flickers against the wall and the day slips quietly into sleep, I don't look for words to say. I let the silence remain. I let it stay.